So you know the feeling when you look at somebody and you gotta know that they haven't had sex in a while?
I absolutely hate that.
Why?
Because you can't tell.
You can tell. Let's get one thing out of the way from the jump. Everyone has a relationship to sex.
Yes, and so we decided here at Erupt to create a safe space, a brave space, if you will, where sex is celebrated, every kink is sacred, and nothing is off the table.
Welcome back to Nocturnal Eruptions. I'm Arya. That's Sid. So you didn't answer my question.
I knew he was going to ask me again.
Have you had sex recently?
No, I have not.
That's great.
I feel clearly some type of way about it.
Yeah.
I have not. I'm going to ask you, and then I want to get into the act of not having sex.
Sure.
But
I also didn't have sex recently.
You didn't?
I did not. This past weekend I decided
a change.
The whore went to bed. I needed some me time without someone else, and I wanted to hang out with my friends, and sometimes you just don't prioritize having sex.
Absolutely. So this is very topical, ladies and days. So, you know, a lot of sex therapists right now, and like, I guess anthropologists are calling this the Great American Sex Recession or the Great American Sexual Drought.
The Great American Sexual Drought, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God. And I'm going to pull out my phone because there are some really delicious stats that I'd like to share with you. So, in the Great American Sex Drought, the amount of Americans who are experiencing celibacy, and I don't think they've been able to necessarily measure like whether it's intentional or not, but has peaked since 2018 at 23%, or roughly 1 in 4, mainly between the ages of 18 and 29, which is why this is interesting.
You're telling me that one in 4 people
is celibate.
By choice or by...
That's what I'm saying. I cannot tell you whether it's by choice or not, but I would say a lot of the hypotheses surrounding this are like, first of all, our generation is getting married later.
True.
And then also, casual sex is in certain communities on the decline. And there's no reason why, but I do find this interesting that like the majority of the people that we're talking about are 20-something men.
That is wild to me.
That's wild to me. And so there's a couple different correlations, right? Like 54% of unemployed Americans don't have a romantic steady partner. And that's partially because there is a correlation between, you know, labor participation and stable relationships, stable romantic relationships. Now, I don't necessarily think you can count out, again, the amount of the unemployed who are having casual sex, but I imagine that that's like a self-esteem thing, right? You don't have a job. You're feeling some type of way. You're not feeling, for lack of a better term, fuckable. I don't know. I think that the act of not having sex is both people trying to reclaim their choice and reject the norm that we're supposed to all just be like between our 18 and 29, we're all supposed to be just like rapidly fucking.
Wait, but isn't also the like statistic that like most people only have like 7 sexual partners in their life?
Yes. And also what interests me most of all is that in 1989, as to be expected, everybody would like a majority of people were having sex like multiple times a week. And I find it interesting that like in the past 30 years, that is 30, 40. Oh my God, how old are we? What's happening? That's changing. Now, I do want to talk about the difference between celibacy and abstinence because I do think people struggle with this, right?
Yes.
So when I say celibate, what do you think about?
Someone who is not having sex because they're either not in a vibe or don't have a partner to have sex with.
Okay. And when I say abstinent, what do you think of?
Someone who's choosing definitively that they will not have sex until a later date for a specific reason. Okay,
so you are right on the latter. Now, celibacy is derived from the Latin word celibatus, meaning the state of being unmarried. The irony of this. Okay. A voluntary choice to remain unmarried or engage in any form of sexual activity usually in order to fulfill a religious vow. But for the most part, people who talk about celibacy, there is no specified time period.
Right.
So it could be forever. It could be 2 years. Anyway, abstinence, also called continence, which just sounds like the opposite of incontinence, which is when you have no control of your bladder, is often the temporary, strict avoidance of all forms of sexual activity for any reason.
Right.
So unless you're taking a vow of celibacy, you are considered abstinent.
Sure.
If you're like, I'm waiting till marriage, I'm waiting until I meet the right person, you are abstaining.
Right. Yes, I follow. Sorry. I feel like you're telling me all this and I'm like that woman in the meme with the math. I'm like trying to.
No, I know. Well, I mean, I feel like that's what I hope to inspire in you because you know so much and I'm really glad that I can do that to you. Now, I want to talk about health effects, okay? So like not having sex, is not inherently bad for you.
I agree.
People have a lot of myths surrounding not having sex. Everyone's like, oh, it makes you crazy. Like, it just makes you a cuckoo bird. But the irony is that, like, the urge itself is intensified by having it. So, like, after a while, if you're not having sex, your body won't want to.
So this is like that moment when, like, you're at home late at night and you're kind of hungry and you're like, I'm going to just have one chip. And then if you've got one chip, suddenly you're eating the entire bag.
And then it's over. And then you're, like, in the fridge 25 times and suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you've eaten, like, 6 bags of
You know the feeling. You've been there. 6 bags of cheese in one night.
I was clearly just talking about myself. So there's that. And then there's also the other side of that is that sex stimulates neuron growth in your hippocampus. Okay. Abstaining from sex, it doesn't like do anything sort of destructive to your brain, but it does not foster brain growth in the same way.
Sure. Which
is interesting.
Yeah.
Similarly with the rest of your body parts, like those of us who have vaginas, and specifically because of where in a lot of female bodies where the pelvic floor is, it can essentially like your pelvic floor muscles can atrophy. So if you're not having sex for a long period of time, it's not that like people always say, oh, you get like tighter or you get re-virginized. That is not true. That is a full myth. But
the re-virginizing.
Yes, the idea that your vagina somehow gets like tighter. It's not correlated with that. Has everything to do with your Kegel muscles. But in terms of your pelvic floor,
yes,
it will atrophy after a while if you do not have sex for quite some time, and that can then make sex super painful. Penetrative sex,
yes, I've heard
super
of that,
painful
yes.
Because maybe your vagina, you get vaginismus, or you're like, get out of here.
What is vaginismus for those who don't know?
Vaginismus essentially is the I'm going to butcher this definition, but it's okay. It's a condition where your vagina essentially like tenses up so much. I'm sorry that I'm doing this.
The visual component is
motion. I'm sorry,
necessity.
everyone. I'm sorry. But like it tenses up so much that like nothing can go in it. And so you have to like slowly ease it back open. Yeah. But there's this like crazy idea that like the more sexual partners you have, you suddenly just become like a stretched out rubber band. That's just
That's
like not true. The one thing that will probably affect it is childbirth because birth is literally you passing like the biggest.
I mean, yeah, it's not
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That said, the same with ED. So erectile dysfunction, if you're not having sex, there is some truth to the idea that like if you don't use it, you lose it.
Also, like maybe there's a conversation to be had here about if you do use it while watching a lot of porn, then it's harder to use it when it's a real person.
We should definitely do a whole moment on porn at some point.
About that. But yes, if you don't use it, you do unfortunately potentially lose it.
Now, when we think celibacy specifically, I think a lot of people think Catholic Church, and I'll get into that in a minute, right? But celibacy right now is also being reclaimed by a lot of straight women as a moment to not, though there are two sides of this, right? Though there is a myth that like men inherently, like cis men are inherent. I know there's a lot of hand motions going on. Cis men are inherently more sexual than women. That's not true. On the flip side of that, there are a bunch of women who don't enjoy sex and feel really weird about not enjoying sex.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do. They're not asexual. They just like they've had their quota of it, and they're like, I'm done now.
Totally.
There's a lot of single moms who are like exploring celibacy as like oh wait, I don't actually have to feel pressured to have a partner, to have a sexual partner. I can just like focus my energy elsewhere. Sure. So there's a lot of intentional celibacy, I would say. There's a lot of that going on, which I think is kind of great.
It sounds chic, honestly.
Yeah, rejecting. Oh my gosh, I was reading this like crazy Elle UK article, and this woman is just like talking about all of the things that she's gotten done in the past 7 years of like being actively celibate. Yes. I mean, think about the amount of time you and I spend like orchestrating or existing around producing a situation in which we will be sexually active. I used producing because it really is like.
Yeah. No, it's real. I mean, I had a friend who's a gay man who spent 2 months not having an orgasm. And it was a time spent when he was really trying to cultivate a new semblance of like self-worth and self-discovery, but also of like, this is what, what happens to me if I take this thing that I spend time doing out of the picture. Yeah. And of course got a lot more done, but also his energy changed. He like really felt his energy changing. And in that moment, when we were talking about it, he was like, no, I feel great. I feel like more masculine. I feel more in my body. I feel more alive. And then, I have other friends, or not friends, acquaintances, I should say. I don't know why I guess everyone's my friend.
Not
Everyone's
everyone.
My friend.
You can't be friends with us.
He had a cage. He put his penis in a cage and was in the cage for 90 days. And also came back saying, I love this.
Wait.
This is the...
Wait.
I'm sorry I didn't prep you for this in the green room.
Cage?
A cage. A cage.
Like a
physical cage.
But then how did he... I guess people wear cups all the time.
Yep.
Okay.
You can unclip the cage in order to urinate or to clean.
Not a horrible word.
I'm just trying to be
No,
scientific.
it's good.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of studies. There's a lot of both studies and also personal experience that I've heard around men who also, in their choice of celibacy and in restraint, if you will, frankly, finding out new things about themselves and learning that they have other desires and passions and really chasing that. And that wouldn't, I don't think, have been possible for those men if they hadn't chosen a form of celibacy together.
I mean, we're talking oxytocin, we're talking dopamine. Like, sex is not the only way to achieve those things. And also, often, I mean, celibacy can mean different things for different people, but often people who are celibate or abstinent, honestly, can engage in outer course, can engage in...
Let's define outer course.
I was just about to. I was waiting for you to ask me.
Can you define outer course?
Yes, I can. Outer course is essentially, it ranges, right? Some folks see outer course as anything like kissing, dry humping. That will never not be a funny phrase to me. I know that I'm 13 years old at heart about that, but like, it's wow. Okay. So anyway, kissing, dry humping.
Just say body contact.
That's wild. Massaging, hugging, body contact, being body friends. There's a massage chair store.
Body friends.
There's a massage chair store in Los Angeles called Body Friend, and every single time I drive by it, I lose my shit. Okay. That said, it can also be like, some people just think that, some people say that anything penetrative shouldn't be included in outer courses if you're celibate, if you're practicing celibacy or abstinence.
Okay.
Abstinence. But some people believe that like toys and anal sex and oral sex can also be included in outer course. I know.
Anal
it depends on the person.
Outer course
is wild to me as well. But again, it depends on who you are. It depends on what you prefer. Okay. Moving on. I also just want everybody to know the Catholic Church did not make celibacy for priests a mandate until 1139. Okay? Brian, our lovely producer, reminded me that part of that is about keeping wealth within the community, right? You don't have to share your wealth with your spouse or your kids. The other part of that is by packaging it and saying, if you are chaste the way Jesus was chaste, you are closer to God. It is a calling to God to serve the Lord and to serve nothing but the Lord. And so if you are living in the image of God, if you are living in the image of Jesus, it's about chastity. And I think people really have a misconception that there is something inherently wrong with priests that choose said vow of celibacy, that it screws their brain chemistry up automatically. That's not true. I
don't understand. Like, just take out the priest part and it sounds crazy.
Right. Okay, so have you ever been celibate for a period of time?
There was a period of time in which I wasn't having sex, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been celibate with a partner?
No.
This is something else I find interesting. So many more people are engaging in both non-sexual and romantic / platonic long-term relationships.
Interesting.
Now more than ever, I think a lot of people are trying to free themselves of this responsibility. Like we have bodies, so we're supposed to be just like
Totally. No, you like you think that. Oh wow. Yes.
You're
Just
welcome.
like
You're
that,
welcome.
kids.
You're welcome.
That's how you
That's
do
what it sounds like.
That's how you
not
do
what
it.
it sounds like.
It can.
It's so dry.
More on that later. Yeah, I think that it's great to see sort of the sexual liberation that has been happening over the course of the last 20 years, now also resulting in a different kind of sexual liberation.
Why do you think we're not having sex now? Americans.
I think, frankly, it probably has something to do with beauty standards. It probably has something to do with, these sort of unattainable goals of like, I want a partner that looks like this, that does this, that is this, and
individualism.
And people get really sucked up in that, and they really get trapped there. But I also I don't know, because I think at the same time, like, it could be a multitude of issues that we're not considering.
Yeah.
I
took a couple years off of sex. And they're definitely, you do feel a little isolated at first. You do have a bunch of people being like, why? Because you can't,
Oof.
not literally. Wow. It sounds like I have horrible people in my life.
Terrible people.
No, but you do have people questioning that decision. You do have people wondering whether that's being made out of necessity or whether that's involuntary. And we will get into that in a moment. But I do think that there is power in it. I learned so much about desire. I learned so much about compulsory heterosexuality and heteronormativity. And just for a definition, we live in a patriarchal society, and as a result, there are certain societal norms that we are both intentionally and accidentally brainwashed into believing. And
they're coming to get you, as you tell us this. They're like, go get her, wrap it up.
The horsemen of the patriarchy. But yeah, I think that as a result, untangling those things, untangling my own relationship to desire, and going, oh my God, wait. I love sex.
How did you start that journey? The detangling of that, it seems very intense.
Okay, well, I will say that as a Black woman growing up in white spaces on the East Coast, I was just rejected constantly. All of the men that I liked, and they ranged in race, all the men that I liked did not like me back. I also did have I don't know. My mother would never, ever, my mother will be very upset when she sees this that I would ever say that I had an ugly duckling phase, but I did. I definitely did.
I want to take a step back because, firstly, I agree, Mom. She didn't have an ugly duckling face.
I openly did. Whatever. But
wait, I want to go back just to clarify. This period in which you were consistently being rejected, you're attributing to your Blackness, or was it something else? You said that prior
to me, no, of course, that to me is sort of inherent. There is, unfortunately, and this is still true, it's crazy. I think I have a very, we look at attractiveness, symmetry is important. Certain features are more attractive than other things. To the vast majority of a lot of people, and through what we're taught in media and what we're taught in life.
Yeah.
That said, even if I had those things, my Blackness sort of canceled a lot of it out. So I was one of the first people in high school to have big boobs. It didn't matter.
Right.
It didn't matter. And as a result, I internalized that as, oh my gosh, there's something wrong. And then eventually, I don't think I realized how pervasive that was until I was in my 20s.
Right.
And then I was sort of at the tail end of a really crappy coupling that ended up a little tryst that ended up dissolving. And then I was like, wait, whatever I'm putting out into the universe is sending back some crazy shit. And so I just need to take a step back and take stock of what I actually want out of life, out of love, out of sex. And I did.
Proud of you.
Hey, thanks.
That's more than a lot of people do.
Now, before we move on to the other extreme, I want to talk about the extremes of not having sex.
I do as well.
Very quickly, we've all heard the term incel, and if we haven't, that would be involuntarily celibate. That is what that term means. It was coined in 1997 by a woman named Alana, originally hoping to foster a community of folks who were chronically lonely, chronically sexless, who were feeling isolated and hurt, And then
that sounds lovely.
It does sound lovely, and then it turned really like not lovely. And incels have become a very specific straight male community of folks who genuinely believe that they are not just being deprived of, but they are entitled to what they are being deprived of, which is sex and love from women. And as a result, there's a lot of misogyny thrown around in those rooms. There's a lot of sort of, it's so strange because it's sort of like, you use the word idealistic and you think like dream, but it's sort of like nightmarishly idealistic.
Yeah.
Women aren't really ever referred to as women. They're referred to as other really horrible names.
Give us some of the names. We gotta do it.
Femoid is one of them. Femoid is like one of the least offensive. And then there's another one that's pretty offensive. Women who have a lot of sex, because there's a widely held incel belief that like if you are having sex with one man, your vagina stays intact. But if you're having sex with multiple partners, your vagina becomes like roast beef. So they call them roasties. Silence for roasties.
Yeah, just like
disgusting. That said, they also ironically uphold the beauty standard. And that was the other part of not having sex for me. Is like really just like taking the white man out of my head who was telling me I wasn't cute and being like, wait, I am my own beauty standard.
I know her. That I know that as well. That was an important thing that I had to do as well.
Being like, you know what? No. Actually, I am my own beauty standard. Good night.
Yeah.
That said, incels tend to uphold said patriarchy, and they are of all races. There's a lot of racism and transphobia and misogyny interweaved into incel culture. And, you know, they categorize everybody as like either a Chad or a Stacy. Stacy's got like big tits and a big ass and like doesn't have to work a day in her life and is the ideal. And Chads are tall and have huge dicks and like are super sexually active. And on top of that, in there is like eugenics language, like crazy language about like wrist size and skull size. Incels have different skull sizes in their mind. Like it's weird. It's insane. So all of that to say that now we've also experienced like a lot of violence being attributed to that community, specifically that guy in Toronto a couple years ago. And I think that not every incel is violent, but
say it again. Not every incel is violent. That is not what we are saying. Because I think it's important to recognize also that like if the numbers are going down, if we're in, as you called it, the Great American Sex Drought, then like incels are inherent. Like those people are just essentially they have to exist. That is an unavoidable reality.
Right.
But what hopefully is avoidable is those people being violent.
Yes.
And or hopefully like villainizing women and using phrases like roasties, which it was visceral. I didn't love that.
Right. And then, you know, you've got Chads and Stacys, and then you've got normies, who are women who are not Stacys, normies and incels. And the normies and the incels don't want the normies. The incels want to be able to have and expect to be able to have, and then are also fatalist about having any sort of sex and love relationship with a Stacy.
Right. And let's just be clear again. Sorry, maybe you said this and I missed it because I was thrown by some of these words. But again, the woman doing the math meme, like that's me today. But you know, incels are celibate not by choice.
Yes, involuntarily celibate. Now, the other side of this, which is a little more hopeful and a little more light, is femcels are coming back. Now, these are women who are experiencing involuntary celibacy, and their community is very different than the straight male incel community. Their community is really geared to self-love because a lot of them are from marginalized communities and are experiencing, I would say, rejection based on that marginalization. Yeah. And so as a result, a lot of them are bonding over not feeling like they fit into the beauty standard, not being chosen and choosing themselves and choosing each other and trying to foster a safe and healthy understanding of sex and love through a little bit of trauma bonding, I will say, but still through community. And I think that's something that's super, super beautiful. Now, we've talked about the extremes of not having sex. We've talked about not having sex. Not having sex is a choice, or sometimes it's not. Do whatever you need to do.
It's okay.
Now let's talk about the opposite. Let's talk about like sex and decadence and
opulence. Honestly,
no,
just call it what it is. Sexual opulence.
Sexual opulence.
Yeah, I had to readjust.
In the age of the Great American Sex Drought.
Some of us are having a lot of sex. Yes. Let's talk about it. I think I'll set a scene, and then let's talk about specifically one thing within that scene. Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, yeah.
So we don't do this, and maybe we should do this at the top, but maybe it's time to self-identify. I'm a gay man.
Oh.
I use he/him pronouns. I have sex with other men and other male-identifying people and/or non-binary people that were born male. I go to parties that are informally referred to as after-hours parties. They're parties that generally start around 11 p.m. and go until around 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Okay. These parties are hosted by queer people of color, at least the ones that I attend. I'm very selective about which of these parties I go to because sometimes you really are walking into an environment that you're like, what is this? But these are parties that are meant to be a space where you, no matter who you are safe. Yep. Sort of when you get the email inviting you to these parties, the first thing is like no transphobia, no racism, no fat phobia, no pause phobia, which is like phobias against people who might be positive for HIV or AIDS. It's a safe space. And then, this is a party about like letting yourself free and like embracing who you are and just being the most you in this space and letting everything sort of like open the doors that you may have closed Monday through Friday because of your life. Friday night at 11 p.m., that door swings open and you walk through it. And I will also say the people I know who throw those parties are some of the greatest people I know.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say.
Legends, and also kindness and like just a different understanding of humans and how humans interact and are building these sacred spaces.
Right. Like
which
sexual opulence being the opulent part being consent and safety. Yeah. That's the funny part.
Yeah.
Like,
so you go to these parties.
Okay, wait. I want to role play.
Yeah, role play.
Ready? Okay, so I'm a gay man.
Yes.
I'm a gay man.
Cool.
I'm still black. I'm a gay man.
Yes.
I get an invite.
Yes.
From a friend.
You will RSVP to the invite.
Is all the information about the party on the invite?
It will generally be in the invite, yes.
So what will it say?
That invite will have a sequence of rules.
Okay.
Those rules will tell you that like this is a safe space. This is a space in which, we are not condoning any violence. This is a space in which we are cultivating queer family. This is a space in which you let yourself go and live your best life.
Okay.
We will have space within here for you to potentially get tested. For you, there will be food. There will be all these sort of sequence of information for you available at this party. There will also be DJs. There's going to be bars, things like that. So that'll be in the invitation. And then towards the end of the invitation, there will be before that there will be sort of a description of payment. Right? Because like these parties are never free because you are supporting the artists who are throwing these parties.
True.
So trans people of color usually are allowed in for free to these parties. And then if you are a queer person of color, you're paying minimal. And then sort of white cis gay men are paying a fair amount. And then allies and women are paying the most amount to enter these parties. Okay. And then at the very bottom, usually there is sort of like a disclaimer about like there will be a dark room.
Okay.
And it will sort of tell you like a dark room. Just I guess it's time for the disclaimer.
Yep.
Dark room is a space in these parties in which you're having sex. You're having sex. Other people are having sex. It's a sexual room within the realm of this party. You're not in any way forced to enter a dark room when you go to these parties.
No.
There are many a night in which you don't go into the dark room and you have the time of your life. But the dark room is there.
And not every party will feature a dark room.
And not every party will feature a dark room.
Okay.
Which is, a dark room doesn't make or break a party. Like you know what I mean? Like a dark room is a.
It also does not make or break the sexual activity at said party.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So. And in that space, consent is mandatory. Condoms are provided. Lube is provided. You are encouraged to prep your body in whatever way that you need to be prepared to go into that space, to have fun in that space, and to be your sexiest self in a safe manner, given consent. So you will RSVP to this party.
Right. So I get dressed. I get ready.
On the night of, probably around 8:30, you'll get the address.
Are you okay?
Yes.
So great. So then I receive the address. I mean, am I going with my friends?
I'm going with my friends.
Okay,
yeah, you're
so
going with your friends.
we get the address, we carpool, we get our lives together,
Yes.
and by carpool we get in a Lyft because we don't drive drunk here.
No.
We go.
Yeah. You get to the party. It's usually a
big house.
No, warehouse.
Warehouse. I'm imagining like cushy mansion.
No, warehouse. Okay. Very much warehouse. Okay. In a very undisclosed part of town, usually in which there's not much else happening. Like the party's there because there's nothing else happening in the area.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it is for all intents and purposes, it is a legal party. It's not.
No, absolutely.
It's very illegal. You are
illegal.
Illegal.
Okay.
Oh, it's very illegal because you're staying until 6 a.m. and you're serving alcohol.
Okay.
There's probably there's security and there's things happening. Like it's not a free for all,
right.
but it is for all intents and purposes, not a legal
Technically
party.
not up to code.
Right.
Okay.
And so you get there. There's usually a minimal line because you don't want hundreds of people standing on the street.
No, of course not.
There are beautiful, very welcoming people at the door always.
Great.
They'll check your ID. At this point, they're checking your Vax card. Also, these parties now are demanding both proof of vaccination and a negative test from the last 3 days, which is chef's kiss, particularly given what's happening inside of these parties. And then you will.
Am I coming with like a change of clothes? Am I coming with
No,
like, okay.
no. I mean, you could have a costume change.
Okay. Well, yeah.
But no, I just have one look.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you walk into the party, and then for all you know, it's just a normal party.
So I'm walking into the party. What am I seeing on site? Like first room, how many people are there? Like obviously it depends on what time you get there.
It depends on what time you get there. It can range. There can, I think the biggest party I've been to is probably like 3,000 people. Wow. Huge party, but it depends. It really depends. Some of these parties are very small. Some of them are much bigger.
I love this.
And it's queer people. It's queer people having the time of their lives,
yeah.
and like there's just kindness in the room.
Yeah.
And also like. In that, because everyone's being nice to you, you're kind of turned on. Like it's not sexually turned on, but like there's something that happens when people are really nice to you.
No, absolutely.
And when everyone's
you let your guard down a little bit. You're able to. So okay, I'm the first timer. I'm with my friends who are not. They're shepherding me through, or I'm like taking.
They're hopefully shepherding you through. There'll be, you'll get a drink at the bar. You will walk around. There'll be music happening. There's probably some fun lights going off somewhere.
Okay.
And there's just people, and you're just hanging out, and it's a very fun dance party.
I also think in pop culture, this has been portrayed as like everybody's wearing a mask. It's been sort of costumified.
Or like on Girls. Like I think about that Brooklyn Warehouse.
I've never
scene
seen
in
that
Girls.
episode.
Yes.
I've seen a couple other things that I feel like have an episode with like a sex party that like everyone's got masks on and it's like
Sleep
this,
No More.
Yeah, like it's literally Sleep No More. But
for those who don't know, Sleep No More is a theatrical piece in New York.
No, if you don't know,
Google
it. We're not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And honestly, get a ticket.
No, it's not that. It's queerness. So like you have incredible looks, and then you've got people like me. I would wear this very outfit: jeans and a t-shirt. And shoes that I don't mind being kind of stepped on.
Oh, okay.
And like that, because it's a dance floor. I mean, you're in a warehouse. Like, but there are people serving looks.
I was going to say,
it is
like,
incredible.
in this scenario, I'm definitely serving a look and maybe have a costume change. That said, I've now had my drink. I'm on the dance floor. I'm dancing. It's time. I'm feeling vibes. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I've prepared my body beforehand.
Right.
I knew I saw on the invite that there was a dark room. I know I'm going into a dark room. Now what?
Okay, so at this party, there will be a door. There will be a door or a partition of sorts. It's usually a black door or a almost garbage bag like sort of partition.
Okay.
And you will walk through that door.
Okay.
And on the other side of that door is a very dark room, like literally dark.
Can I see my hand in front of my face?
You probably have like 15% visibility.
Okay.
It's dark.
You can see bodies, but you can't necessarily like make
right.
out.
So the first thing that really will hit you when you walk into a dark room is like sound and smell.
Okay. I'm walking in. I don't know why my eyes are closed now. I'm walking in. What do I hear? What do I smell?
You're hearing sex.
Sex. Okay.
You're hearing all
and
different
you're smelling
kinds.
sex.
You're smelling, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also, full stop, you're also smelling men's cologne. I think that's a really important element, is that you're smelling like men sweating, men having sex, and like men's cologne.
Amazing.
And those things like becoming this strange amalgam of like the dark room.
Can the music be heard in the dark room?
You're just hearing thumping coming from the other room. Do you know what I mean?
Got it.
Like there's not like a speaker in the dark room.
So it's purposefully. Well, I asked that because it's like, so you're really depriving your senses of an experience that you were just having.
Yes, it's very different.
Okay.
And there are a lot. It depends on the timing, I guess, but there can be a lot of people in the dark room. And I've never actually had to describe this to someone before.
I'm so pleased.
I've never had to do this before. I hope this is okay with the community that I'm doing this. I like just dawned on me that like I hope this is fine that like I'm telling.
Well, don't
the
share
stories.
too much.
No, but I think it's important because there are other representations of it in the media.
Yes.
And people think they know.
Yeah.
Like people think like we're in some like weird like Halloween mask.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
Well, also for the record, like it's not just the gay community or the queer community that's participating in sex parties in any kind of way.
Totally.
So I would say, though, this is probably the safest iteration of a sex party. This is probably like
safety is priority.
Right.
Priority.
This is about safety and
Yes.
consent in a way that I can imagine heterosexual group sex is not.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because that's not necessarily always part of the culture, unfortunately. But continue.
Yeah. So you'll walk into the space. The space won't be much bigger than this very room.
Okay.
Ultimately, like this isn't like some like ballroom. Being close to people is part of it.
So
right?
I'm there. I know what's happening. Do I start to disrobe? Do I pick a partner and then disrobe?
You can do that. You can do whatever you want. Because at the
love
end of the day,
this.
like you could lean up
love
against a wall and just jerk off and watch.
Wow.
Which is personally something that I've seen very often. I'm like, that's kind of hot. This is a fun moment of voyeurism and witness.
if that's part of your kink, then absolutely.
Yeah. And then there's just people having all different types of sex around you, and you know, I don't have a ton of experience of actually having sex in these spaces. I have a few experiences of this, and the experiences I've had have been really lovely. Of like a guy coming up to me like, "You're beautiful," and I'm like, "Thank you so much." And then be like, "Can I take your clothes off?" Or like, "Can I do this? Can I do this? Do you want to do this?"
Oh, that's so consent is so sexy.
Yeah, and
I
then
have
like
to reiterate.
And then like the moment the consent piece is passed on, like then it's on. Like then it's like you're in it, and like it is unlike any. I don't know if you've had sex in a room with like 20 other people watching, or just even 20 other people present. But like it is a very unique experience that you either like it or you don't, I think. But it is freedom in a way. It's a very different kind of freedom.
So that's the other thing I was going to say. I think for a lot of, I think for the queer community, I think for the gay community, I think for the trans community, I think sex is rebellion. I think sex is a protest. I think in a very, just like the straight woman claiming her celibacy is also an act of protest in a lot of ways against patriarchal standards, against all of it. Just like femcells existing are like so sort of anti-patriarchal in the best way. Like I just think that for some of us, sex is that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we were told that we couldn't.
And also like, yeah, it feels like something that like, I don't know how to say this properly. It feels like heritage.
Properly?
Like just like the right way I want to say it. Like it feels like a part of like
Legacy.
gay heritage and
no,
legacy.
It's definitely a legacy.
And like we lived for so long as a community where like we were still like we didn't have PrEP. We didn't have things that like protected us.
No, but even the darkroom itself.
Right.
Right? The darkroom is like a complete bastardization and like breaking down of and reclaiming the idea of the closet.
Right.
Like get out of here.
Totally. I love that. I hadn't thought about that before.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I love that.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this.
And so, you know, you'll either have sex in that space or you won't, or you will do something else, and then you'll walk back out into the party.
Yeah.
And
you'll
like,
have
and then your friend will be like, "Did you have fun?"
Yeah.
And like that'll be that on that,
Yeah.
unless you want to tell them more. And then
Right.
like the party goes until you. That's the beauty of these sorts of parties. Like these parties go until you want to be
Leave,
done.
yeah.
Like this, no one's like being like, "It's time, TikTok, you gotta go."
Yeah.
You know
They're
what I
turning
mean?
the lights on.
Like,
No.
It's like.
Are there
happens.
showers?
No, usually not.
Just curious.
No, I've never seen a shower situation.
I
I've
almost
seen-
just divulged information that I probably shouldn't, but
Okay,
I will
go
just say
off.
somebody that I know is somebody who showers before and after sex every time. Before and after.
I mean, I
before-
usually shower before.
And after.
I'd like to shower before having sex.
Before and after.
Like, but I don't.
No, I don't think that's bad. I just I don't have that.
That's okay. If you want to shower,
No,
before
do whatever
and
you
after,
need to do.
Shower before and after.
Clean thyself. I'm just saying, I just think people's rituals around sex are funny.
But it's important.
No, because everybody has sex
you need
differently.
what you need in order to then show up into the space to be the most you, right?
And I think this is what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Right? Like, regardless of whether you're having group sex or you've decided to take a vow of celibacy, literally, like what you do sexually is entirely up to you and should be. What you are is entirely up to you and should be.
Yes. I love that.
Like, I don't think, I mean, fine, you want to call it the Great American Sex Drought, but maybe it's just that we're finally rejecting that there are rules here.
Maybe we're finding ourselves in the
Yes. Yes. Maybe it is the act of consent, but like for ourselves. It's like, do you actually want to do that? How do you actually want to participate? Like consent is also at every single level of, I think, an experience of sex. Like it's both, wait, do you actually find that person attractive or were you told to?
Right.
And also, do you want this?
Are you giving yourself? I love the idea of like, are you giving yourself the consent to just live your life the way that you want it?
Yeah. I love this too.
Are you giving yourself the consent to do that? It's so important.
I hope you go out into the world with this.
Totally. I encourage you, of course, to smash that subscribe button and to come back and talk to us on Nocturnal Nocturnal Eruptions. If you've got stuff you want us to talk about, if you've got thoughts on this, I'm sure you do.
Please follow us on social media.
Put it out into the world. We will respond.
Absolutely.
And we will take whatever you give us.
Exactly. And if you don't feel comfortable putting it out into the world, just DM us. We will be happy to read your saucy, fun questions. This is the most fun we have all week.
It's the best. And we thank you for joining us. You've been with Erupt. My name is Arya. This is Sydney. We'll see you again very soon.